There's a little truck I did a couple years ago, just playing around with it. Uh, Had it like a 80 models cab on it and a 70s bed, but everything was tied up in this truck when I first picked it up. The radiator, everything, the gearbox, the steering gearbox, all of it was, as you can see right here. It had bungee cords, tie wire. I did drive the truck home. Um, Back to this picture here, but this is what the truck looked like kind of when we started. Look at the coolers, how they had them tied in there. Uh, they just found a cooler and ran some lines to it, both sides, the transmission and the engine oil. I don't think they really knew how they're supposed to go. But anyway, you see some wiring stretched over the radiator, and look at that booster and master cylinder. I don't think it went to that truck. It was the wrong year for it. There's the gearbox tied in with strap. There's a ratchet strap holding the gearbox. It did have a couple of bolts in it, nuts, but it was loose. Still drove the truck home. He hacked on the dash a little bit, trying to put the 90s 454 stuff in it, because everything in the truck came out of a 90 454 SS truck. The truck was totaled, so they pulled the engine and transmission, the dash, everything out of it, and tried to put it in the Stepside. If you look close to the doors there, there's 4 windows. So I think he got his electrical stuff out of a Suburban. Had to have. But it was the whole truck was a wreck. I took on the truck to clean up. Got it done. He hacked on the dash, putting the radio in it. ECM hanging on the floor. But I mean, the whole truck, it was a mess. So the radiator was tied in right there, as you can tell. It's one that didn't fall out away there. The rear brakes. When I picked the truck up, he handed me some brake fluid. Said I'll need this to get home on. Of course, it was pouring fluid out of them. It would stop, but gosh, it was leaking bad. Both sides were. So I went in, and first thing I did was put all new brakes on the thing, on the rear. I never got to the front until later on, but I just about had to throw everything away. Went back with new. But they worked great, and they got done with them. Let's start on this engine here, back on that booster. But I changed it out and put the one back in it that worked. And that booster master cylinder worked well in that year model. But it was the truck was a challenge. It was a mess to clean up. I never did get actually to the cab. I just pilling with it, trying to find all my fires and what all for the engine, what went where, and try to figure out how they put that wiring harness out of that 90 model SS in there. It was hacked on some, but none of the wires were covered up, no loom, everything was naked. There's some coax, a house wire there that he ran in there to make things work. But they painted it orange and just dropped it in the truck. It looks like it was pretty messy. Here, look at this house wire electrical he had ran there. Pretty good mess we had. Going through these, I had my work cut out for me on cleaning it up, but it's one of those things where you say you will, and you did. You know, that ratchet strap goes from one side of the truck to the other underneath it, holding the gearbox on. And he was driving this truck. The motor mounts were shot. When I took them out, there's a number on your angles there that your mounts hook up to your brackets. They have an 8 and a 6 on them, and this one side was on 6, one side was on 8. And in a minute I'll show you with motor mounts messed up. The manifolds were actually resting on the frame. where it's done falling. And on the way home, I thought, man, this thing is steering is tight in it, you know. Seems to be pretty tight, but the gearbox is loose. And you'll see the reason why here shortly. But as we started on the engine, ripping it all down, it stayed in the frame. I didn't take it out. I should have. I didn't. I just went and cleaned it up, ordered what I wanted for it. Just to kind of clean the thing up, because it was running rough when I brought it home. Gosh, it was running like I had a high lift cam in it, you know, which it was decked. The head's been done on it. It was decked down to where they took the serial numbers off the front. There's one of the motor mounts or engine mounts that fell. It's just resting there. It was pretty bad shape. Manifold's resting on the frame, and that's what was keeping it up. The engine was resting on the frame there, where it's done falling. Both sides. What a wreck. That's why my steering was tight. Oil pan sitting on the, I guess, bit of drag link there. It was just sitting on top of it, dragging on it. I guess if it wasn't for that, the engine may have fell a little further if it didn't hit the frame. So I got the engine mounts out, and going to go ahead and replace those before we get any further. Get everything back up where it's supposed to go before we actually start on it, get rolling, so get our wiring done. But on those, they do have a 6 and an 8 marked on them. Depends on what engine you're going to put in it. It was a mess. Cleaned them up, painted them, and everything that was removed and put back on the truck, you'll see in just a minute. I went ahead and ordered all the GM bolts for it. I had pictures of some of them. Some of them I didn't. But anything I removed and took out, I went back with, if I could find the GM bolt, I did, like the engine mount bolt there. Try to find everything that belonged back to the truck instead of some junk put in there. Anyway, got rid of all that pollution stuff there. Took it off. That was a mess to get off. Auto body. Took it off. You know, we'll clean it up and do some work to it. Get all the any air restrictions out of the way. We'll have good flow. Fix it with a light all right. Got all that done. Just piddling with the truck, you know, making it work. Took a lot of before pictures before I took it off. So what kind of mess it was before I started when I ended. Just going through these, it was a mess. But I cleaned it up pretty good. You know, got it where it looked decent when I got done with it. I would install parts and take them back off, install them, take them back off, over and over and over. Just one of the things you do, you know. Put something on, take it off, put something on, take it off. Oh, I hear them bugs back there. Got a lot of bugs in the background. I know y'all can hear them. But whatever I couldn't, if it was broke or messed up, I went ahead and just replaced it. But if it couldn't be cleaned up and made it look good, painted, whatever, I replaced it. And this engine supposed to have low miles on it, and it did. The chain was still tight. But being I was in there, I went ahead and replaced it. I didn't go back with leave the old chain in it. I didn't know what brand it was, the stretch, whatever. I don't know. So while I was in there, you'll see I went ahead and just replaced it. Be done with it. And this was the 4-bolt main out of that 454 SS. It was a lot of engine for that truck. So I ran all the numbers to make sure everything matched. Everything came back good. I just cleaned it up a little bit, It wasn't going to be built for a show truck. It was just clean to have something a little better than what was in there. I don't know how I made home with it, really. The new harmonic balancer. Just cleaned the front pulley up on it. Like I said, I installed stuff. I took it back off. I did put a new water pump on it because I didn't know, from the looks of the engine, the way they put that thing in there, they probably used, I don't know, I know the engine was gone through. With my scope, I put the scope in the head. It was inside the spark plug hole there, and it was a 40 over engine, decked. So it was running rough. Man, the thing sounded like a top fuel when I brought it home, and all because of the way things were wired and the way it was running. It wasn't getting enough fuel. The screens and the injectors were stopped up, so I went through them. That was marring mess inside the cab. That's that heater. That thing was a mess. I could not get them plugs out of there. I ended up messing one of them up, so I finally ended up getting it out. The radiator mounts, I had to go with the 68 model mounts for it. And the top bracket, of course, you can get those anywhere. There's the relay kit I bought for it, both sides on the fan, because there was 2 fans for it. One was for running all the time, or when it gets hot, it came on, and the other one was for AC. But just clean it up, and going through everything. I did put one temperature sensor in the head and one in the front of the water pump, and had to get a new auto motor. And went ahead and replaced the alternator because the other one would not clean up. It didn't look good, so I just bought one. But anyway, I put one in the head and one in the water pump, where if it did exceed a certain temperature, whether the AC was on or not, the other one would just kick on. I already cut the AC on, both of them was on. There's the monitor of the 68. Just finding some GM bolts. I took some stuff apart, like the bed and all. Went back, had to install a water valve in it. Getting the radiator supports ready to go back. Finding screws to get it back together. That's there was a 34-inch radiator put in it. It came out of that 454 SS truck, and luckily it was mounted like it was the height. I did have to put a 1/2-inch bumper on the bottom, because the way things was going in there. There's one of the switches I put on the water pump. One in the head. That way, if it did exceed a certain temperature, both fans would just kick on. But it never did run hot on me. After I got done with it, I drove it. It never ran hot. Wiring these fans up. But everything was covered with loom. We got done with it. Got rid of all the wires hanging around. And we got to get these coolers out of there. I was thinking it's pretty much my next project on it was getting the coolers out and going back, put the real coolers back in it instead of them. I don't even know where he got them from. Some junkyard, probably out of a radiator. Because normally that cooler's inside the radiator, not outside. But kind of find out the threads were messed up on the original radiator. You couldn't even put the nuts in there from the lines. More of that house wire was there. Cut all that house wire out of it. But she's getting cleaned up right here, starting to come together. Getting where she wouldn't be too long to fire this thing up here. The coolers I was buying to check one of the power steering lines were wrong. Had to replace it. It didn't even have a condenser for the radiator, the AC, so I had to get a condenser for it, put it in there. Going through my coolers, deciding which one we want to use. Install the new condenser. I had to paint it when it got here. It was halfway painted. It must have been in a hurry. But there's the engine oil cooler I choose for it. It worked out real well. And I had to go back with some spots here to some hardware to get the grill back on. So while I was building this truck, or going through it, here we'll go with the bed. While I was going through it, a guy contacted me, wanted to buy the truck. You know, as I was going through it, posting pictures. At that time, I didn't want to sell it till I was done with it. And he came back with a decent offer on the truck. And when I got the offer on the truck, from the shape the truck was in, being hacked on inside, the way everything was, I had to let it go. I didn't, I couldn't turn the offer down, in other words. No way. I mean, I know what I gave for it. The guy was in a bind. So, he made the offer and I accepted, and I come out ahead. Way ahead. So I painted the boards black on the bottom, and then I polyurethane the top. It took 2 weeks to do the boards. I put a coat on it in the mornings, coat on it in the afternoons. There was no special cuts on it. I put the strips right on top of it. You'll see in a minute. I got all the strips from over on eBay. I found them. All stainless steel hardware back in the bed. There was no regular bolts. Everything was stainless. Even the 10-inch, was it 10-inch or 8-inch? I forgot. 10 or 12-inch bolts to go through the tubes on the frame. They were shooting things like 10 or 12 bucks a piece. I think there was 6, I think. But I painted them red, the color of the truck. Kind of didn't like it. So I went back and painted them black. More engine shots. I was just piddling with it. Laying them out, see how they're gonna look. The tailgate was just a flat piece of metal, pretty much. I don't know where he got it from, but had to clean it up, throw some undercoat on it. And that's just like an undercoat bed lining spray I put in it. But all those bolts around the fender, a lot of them was missing, so I had to get those, find those, get them back in there. So I painted the strips black. And started swimming in the bed. The hardest part in that was drilling up through and finding the marks to put the long bolts in those boards, because I knew I had a one-time shot. There's 4 there in the back. I had a one-time shot to measure these and get them right, because if I'd have drilled wrong, I probably wouldn't to have made some more boards match. Got the front end parts, and of course I had to get some door handles because they were shaved. He shaved the door handles off the side of the truck. Don't know why. And that step there, I was going to send it out and have it chrome, like the one I had back in the 80s. It's front end parts, and Just getting her done. But we'll run this thing, see what it sounds like here in just a second. It turned out alright, you know, just cleaned it up was all I did. There's before, after, and let's run it. Here's our after shot. We'll run it. Thanks for watching.